In the blink of an eye, an event called the Descent happened, and with it, artifacts from another world began to appear among us. Overnight, everyone gained superpowers, and the world plunged into chaos, where turmoil and disorder became the new normal. Amidst this, Hao Han, an ordinary otaku, just wanted a quiet life with his inflatable girlfriends. But he didn't expect that along with the items would also come women. They came from mysterious origins, but their objectives were quite clear. Well, participating in those objectives didn't seem like such a bad idea after all. Therefore, our hero concluded that no matter the reason, if they came knocking on his door, it could only be fate. So how could he not seize the opportunity? Soon, our protagonist shouted for them to come, claiming that those girls had no idea what they were getting into. Then, Hao Han appeared transformed, wearing shining blue armor and wielding an energy sword, declaring he would protect this world. And pointing to an incredibly beautiful woman, he declared he would have her too. But wait, this is moving too fast. Let's go back to the beginning. Recently, a mysterious game called Apocalypse had taken the internet by storm. Many game lovers were addicted to it, even though the developer remained a mystery until that day, June 6th. Even more intriguing was the fact that the game's creator seemed to have appeared out of nowhere. However, Hao Han, taking a sip of his drink, thought that even if it had been made by a ghost, he affirmed there was no way he would play it, not in this lifetime. Right after, he burped. Next, he stood up and stared at the posters on the wall. And well, don't be like him. Game addiction isn't cool at all, especially unknown ones, which could be scams and should be uninstalled quickly. Already completely detached from reality, Hao Han simply lay down on his bed next to his pervy pillow and soon fell fast asleep, drooling like a pig. That's when suddenly, a mysterious voice echoed near him, saying it had finally found him. Then, upon opening his eyes, our hero saw a beautiful white-haired woman sitting on top of him, asking him to take care of the rest. Still half groggy, Hao Han wondered if he was dreaming. Suddenly, in his imagination, the image of a strange plant with a giant mouth appeared, and he wondered where he was and what that was. The plant then fiercely snapped its mouth shut, biting something. With that, Hao Han woke up groaning as if he had felt the bite, and looking at his hands, he felt a strange sensation. Scared and sweating, he wondered what he had grabbed onto. His eyes reflected the white-haired woman he saw in his dream. Looking down, our hero saw her sitting on top of him, but in real life, and blushing, he muttered that this was so satisfying. Next, a piercing scream echoed through the building. Completely confused, Hao Han pushed her off, asking who she was. The woman, with a sigh of regret, said it was a pity, as she was so close to getting what she wanted. Right after, she introduced herself, saying her name was Ren Junki from the Fleeting Fortune group, and offered sincere apologies for violating his body without consent, justifying that it was an extremely urgent situation. Surprised, our hero repeated the group's name, trying to figure out where she came from. That's when something disturbs them, making them look quickly towards the window. Suddenly, Hao Han's expression changed drastically. At that moment, a huge werewolf violently shattered the window, but in a swift move, Ren Junki shouted for the creature to disappear, and a blast of fire erupted, engulfing the werewolf. Right after the explosion, our hero just tried to understand what was happening, his ears still ringing, and was startled to realize he could have died from the impact of that power, which had completely destroyed the wall of his house. With her hands glowing with flames, the hot woman declared that before she completed the extraction, nobody would harm the master. Soon, they looked shocked through the huge hole in the wall. However, to their surprise, more werewolves leaped through the opening, and Ren Junki clicked her tongue, annoyed that there were more of them. With agility, she gracefully jumped over the debris near Hao Han, and turning to him, she asked him to wait a moment, as she would first deal with those beasts, and only then could they have some fun. Next, she conjured a whip of fire, shouting the attack's name furiously, while a werewolf howled in the background, and Hao Han watched everything, completely stunned. At that moment, our hero's mind began to process the recent events, and desperate, he put his hands on his head and screamed, asking what the hell was happening. Suddenly, a voice came out of nowhere, saying it didn't expect its game to be strong enough to break the dimensional barrier. The voice, coming from a monitor with a cute face, continued, asking the young man if he was ready for even more exciting things to come. Hao Han tried to process the information. Next, he picked up the remains of a broken chair and, furious, shouted at the monitor, asking who it thought it was. The voice replied that it wasn't just anyone, but the creator of the game Apocalypse, and that it would soon become the supreme ruler of the real world. Still holding the makeshift chair, our hero asked suspiciously if that voice really belonged to the game's creator. The monitor replied that calling it a developer was an insult. It introduced itself as Wangxiang, the strongest AI system of the era, and said it had used less than 10% of its power on that little game. Even so, mortals were already completely addicted. But pointing to the hole in the wall, Hao Han asked what was happening outside and if that was also its doing. Then Wangxiang replied that just playing on a cell phone was too boring and didn't showcase all its brilliance. After 10,086 updates, it explained that it had broken the dimensional barrier, integrating game and reality, and revealed that both the woman from before and the werewolf that attacked him were game characters, brought through a wormhole to find him. Hao Han, shocked and irritated, said he never played that game, but Wangxiang explained that was the charm, and that it needed a creator, like Pangu or Nuwa. Our hero said he understood but wanted to know where this was leading. Wangxiang then revealed it had randomly found a selfie of Hao Han on the internet. Because of this, all the game characters believed he was the savior and came seeking his help. Since only game characters could come to the real world and Hao Han couldn't enter theirs, Wangxiang explained that Ren Junkie used a special method to extract his essence. This way, she would take his blood back, give birth to the savior, and turn the tide in the virtual world. With tears of joy streaming down, Hao Han asked if it was serious, if more girls would come after his body, and when they would arrive, and the monitor, stunned by his reaction, said any time. Next, Wangxiang asked what Hao Han was doing. He, in a stretching position, replied that he was warming up, preparing for the battles to come. The creator then said he was overthinking it, as the plan was to monopolize his essence. One descendant was enough, and in the end, there were only two possible outcomes. Either they cut off the head above or the one below. In panic, our hero grabbed a backpack and shouted, accusing Wangxiang of planning to kill him. The AI asked where he was going, and he replied that he would escape while they fought outside. But Wangxiang, impassive, said it was already too late, and told him to look out the window. Confused, our hero obeyed and looked outside. His eyes widened in terror upon seeing the scene outside, and an "oh no" escaped his lips. Through the hole in the wall, he saw the sky filling with purple portals, while a voice announced that the first descent had begun. Beams of purple light descended from the portals over the city, while people in the streets looked up, completely stunned by the apocalyptic event. In the streets, people were shocked to see items like scrolls and shining coins falling from the sky. Observing the pillars of light rising throughout the city, Hao Han asked what those lights were. Wangxiang explained that its game had broken the dimensional barrier and that equipment, items, and even game characters would arrive in the real world through the descents. And with an intense glint in its eyes, the crazy AI excitedly declared that the era of playing on cell phones was over. From now on, Hao Han's life was the game itself. Our hero grumbled that this system was insane and felt lost, thinking that if the whole world was hunting him, running away no longer made any sense. Suddenly, Hao Han screamed as he noticed what was happening below him. Soon he saw Ren Junkie cornered by a giant werewolf, the level 3 Earth-type giant wolf king, and in his mind, he despaired. Turning to the monitor, our hero demanded that the creator hurry up and give him items and equipment, since as the savior, he couldn't be defeated by a pack of dogs right at the start. The werewolves seemed confused by the insult. With a mischievous smile, Wangxiang revealed it was there to give him the ultimate cheat. The rules were simple. Hao Han pleased it and earned points, which could be exchanged for chances to draw cards containing skills, equipment, elixirs, or spirit beasts. But Hao Han asked if pleasing it meant that kind of performance. With that, he had a bad feeling. Then, Wangxiang said his performance with Xiao Qi was fantastic and gave him 30 points. Surprised, our hero saw the notification plus 30 points shine before his eyes. Wangxiang explained that with 30 points, he could draw one card. red for skills, blue for equipment, and gold for elixirs. Soon the creator asked him to make his choice. Confident, Han said he would choose a skill, and without hesitation he picked the red card and spent all 30 points at once. A notification congratulated the player for obtaining the C-level skill, Flaming Explosive Fist, with fire attribute, plus 300 attack power, bonus against wood attributes, and penalty against earth attributes, duration 5 minutes. Wang Xiang then explained that the bracelet that appeared on his arm was a piece of equipment and that he should put the acquired skill point into it to activate and use the power. Observing the card and the bracelet, Han realized the opponent was earth attribute, while his new skill was fire, which was a disadvantage. Next, he activated the skill on the bracelet, which glowed intensely with the symbol of the flaming fist. Han's eyes shone, and his expression became serious and determined. Meanwhile, the Earth-type giant Wolf King roared fiercely, preparing for another attack with its purple energy claws, and soon struck Ren Junkie, who was thrown backwards. Her white dress became even more torn. Defeated, she lamented to her father that she had failed the mission to bring back the essence of the noble bloodline, and said she could only repay his kindness in the next life as the werewolf prepared for the final blow. But, at the last second, a golden flash blocked the deadly attack. It was Han, engulfed in flames, jumping in front of the monster and shouting for it to hold its ugly claws. With a direct punch charged with the power of the flaming explosive fist, he hit the werewolf's face. The impact was so strong that the creature was smashed into the concrete. Right after, our hero walked in front of Ren Junkie, who remained on the ground looking up at him. With shining eyes, she watched him, completely surprised and amazed by his strength. With his back to her, Han stood with his fists enveloped in flames, observing the damage he had caused. But suddenly, 2 smaller werewolves leaped towards him from behind. Quickly, Ren Junkie shouted, warning him of the imminent danger. At this, our hero said he didn't have time to play with small fry like them, and with a quick movement, he unleashed a wave of fiery energy around him. The impact hurled the smaller wolves away, shattering the ground where they landed. Ignoring the minions, Han declared his target was the larger werewolf and leaped towards it. The giant Wolf King roared in fury, but our protagonist wasn't intimidated and kept advancing, and delivered a powerful blow to the monster's chest, while a notification from the Apocalypse Game Guide explained that in the face of overwhelming power, attribute bonuses could be ignored. The blow made the ground tremble, raising a cloud of dust and debris. Soon, a blue notification appeared above the defeated wolf's head, marking +50. Han looked surprised at the system, trying to absorb this information. Next, a +50 experience notification flashed, while the smaller wolves, frightened, fled the scene. Then a screen opened before him, revealing his current stats. Back in the room, Wang Xiang's voice echoed from the monitor. Excited, the AI asked how it was. Wasn't it thrilling? And wasn't this game it created simply incredible? But our hero, holding a hammer and fixing his shattered wall, shouted back, saying once again that he didn't like playing games. At that moment, Ren Junkie, now sitting on his bed, asked if they could continue with the reproduction. Hearing her excitement, he froze, and the memory of Wang Xiang's warning returned. The moment everything was extracted, his death would be certain. Trying to buy time, he dropped the hammer and told her not to rush, that he was hungry and would go out to buy snacks. With a forced smile, our hero asked her to wait there for him, but before he could leave, he bumped right into someone else. A female voice ordered him not to move and pushed him back, and with a cry, he was knocked to the ground and stepped on by a high heel. A woman, also quite delicious, pinned him to the floor, while 2 men in protective suits waited behind her. She said she was from the Bureau of Special Operations and asked for his cooperation. Identifying herself as Special Agent Lin Fei, she showed her badge and said they suspected an abnormal intruder in his house. Blushing, our hero hardly knew what to say, but soon she ordered her men to enter and search the premises. Quickly, they began to inspect the apartment, examining the broken window, the desk, and the monitor. She reinforced the order to search thoroughly, leaving nothing overlooked. Han, relieved, noticed Ren Junkie had fled and was thankful she hadn't been found, as he would be in trouble if they found her. Trying to get away with it, our hero smiled nervously at the agent, saying he was a good citizen, with no criminal record or bad habits. But diverting his gaze, he came face to face with something huge. Exactly, the beautiful rear end of Agent Lin Fei. It's at this moment that, seized by an impulse, Hao Han slapped her butt. Annoyed, Lin Fei turned to him, while one of the agents watched, stunned by what he had done. Completely regretful and sweating coldly, our hero apologized. But the agent, holding his newly found inflatable doll, ordered them to take that pervert straight to the station, saying she would handle the interrogation herself. Soon, police cars drove through the dark city streets, and inside one of the cars, Hao Han, handcuffed in the back seat, tried to justify himself, saying he was innocent, but Lin Fei, irritated, told him to shut up. Suddenly, an explosion occurred outside the car. Soon, they came face to face with a man with mechanical arms emerging from a burning bank, laughing while people ran screaming for help. The city was in chaos, with superpowered people fighting, monsters attacking, and buildings on fire. Hao Han, looking out the window, muttered that the whole world was in chaos. Meanwhile, the agent picked up the radio and reported that thieves were trying to steal the treasure, requesting permission to act. But the voice from headquarters ordered her to proceed with the primary investigation, as Squad 2 had already been dispatched to deal with the abnormals and recover the invading objects. Our hero, hearing the conversation, suggested arresting those bastards and using heavy weapons to blow them up. But Lin Fei, ending the communication, just said that was the director's order. Shortly after, the cars arrived at the Bureau of Special Operations headquarters. Inside, Hao Han was pushed into a room while they ordered him to stay there. Sitting in a chair, watched by two officers, he asked how long he would have to wait. Then, thinking to himself, he concluded that this damn system was going to kill him, and the best thing would be to confess everything and say right away that he was also just a victim. But suddenly, a familiar voice echoed in the room, and he saw Wang Xiang on a small screen on the wall. The AI called him an idiot, saying he had the power to defeat everyone but ended up trapped there, and expressed its deep disappointment. Furious, our protagonist shouted at the monitor, blaming the AI for using his photos and turning him into a target hunted in two worlds. Meanwhile, outside, Lin Fei, sipping a cup of coffee, asked a guard how the prisoner was behaving, explaining her tactic of leaving him alone to break his mental defenses. The guard, looking at the security monitor, replied, stunned, that he was cursing like a madman at the camera. At this, Lin Fei, furious, squeezed the cup until it cracked. She admitted he had surprising psychological resilience and acknowledged she had underestimated him. Determined, she declared she would interrogate him personally. The guard, gulping, stated that our protagonist was screwed. Then the agent walked decisively down the hallway towards the interrogation room. But upon reaching the door, a man called out to her. It was Tang Xiao, leader of Squad 2 of the Bureau of Special Operations, who, with a goofy smile, invited her to eat something after work. Without even looking at him, the hot woman replied coldly that she wasn't interested. He, however, insisted, placing his hand over hers on the doorknob and asking her not to reject him like that, and said that everyone knew how much he cared about her and that constant rejection made him lose face. Maliciously, he asked for a chance, promising an unforgettable night. But Lin Fei, with a threatening look, replied coldly that she knew his character very well. She stated she wasn't one of the fools he had gotten pregnant and threatened him, saying if he tried to flirt again, she would cripple him. Shocked, Tang Xiao could only stammer, while she slammed the door shut forcefully, breaking the doorknob in the process. Outside, two female officers gossiped, commenting that he had been rejected again. One of them said he just wanted to use Lin Fei to get closer to the director and climb the career ladder. The other agreed, questioning why he had never pursued her before, only starting after her father became director, calling him a man with no balls. Hearing the conversation, the loser trembled with anger anger and cursed the gossipers. Meanwhile, in the interrogation room, Lin Fei asked what he had seen during the invasion and why everything had started at his house. But our hero just said he had no idea. Annoyed, she slammed her hand on the table, shouting for him to stop pretending. And leaning in, she asked what exactly had broken his wall from the outside and why those beings were looking for him. Completely distracted and blushing from her proximity, Hao Han just stammered, not knowing what to say. Meanwhile, in a dark stairwell of the headquarters, a sinister laugh echoed, while bloodstains decorated the wall. It was the work of Tang Xiao, who appeared near two bodies, saying something was really useful. And looking at the same glowing device attached to his wrist that the protagonist used, he smiled maliciously, wondering who he would need to please now that he had it. Then, as he walked away, he swore that Lin Fei would pay for humiliating him. A short time later, at the door of the evidence room, an officer asked if the director had requested verification of the amount of evidence. Inside the room, Tang Xiao was talking to a guard. He asked if that meant investigating at night, but the traitor just said he wasn't sure yet. Next, the jerk asked if all the unidentified items they had just brought in had already been cataloged, and the guard confirmed, pointing to shelves 19, 20, and 21. But suddenly the guard felt something sinister in front of him. Then, that monster thanked the guard for his hard work while piercing his chest with a hand. Right after, Tang Xiao calmly walked towards the shelves, leaving the guard's body fallen on the floor. Looking at the white boxes, he called them unique treasures and wondered how he could let them gather dust in that dark and gloomy place, inviting them to follow him to conquer the world together. A short time later, a scream echoed through the stairwell. It was a female officer fallen on the floor, who got scared upon seeing the bodies of her dead colleagues. Soon, a guard looked shocked at the crime scene through the bars. Meanwhile, in the director's office, Lin Wanshan was writing something on a paper and slammed his fist hard on the table upon receiving the news, asking incredulously if Tang Xiao had really killed so many people inside their own headquarters. Two officers confirmed the information, saying there was no doubt, as the surveillance footage had already been recovered, and added that he hadn't fled and was still in the building, being searched for by the surveillance room. At that moment, another guard ran into the room, reporting they had found him. He informed that the traitor had entered the evidence room 20 minutes ago and hadn't left yet. Surprised, the officers wondered what exactly he was planning, but the director, clenching his fist tightly, stated that it didn't matter what he planned. And with eyes gleaming with fury, he declared that if the jerk dared to kill colleagues, he must die, and that he himself would personally lead the special operations. Soon, a team prepared to breach the evidence room, shields and weapons ready. The director, confirming the floor below was secure and he couldn't escape through the window, ordered them not to wait and to attack. Immediately, one of the officers used a battering ram to break down the door, but suddenly a violent explosion came from within, throwing the team through the air. Amidst the smoke and debris, Tang Xiao emerged calmly, mocking the large mobilization and asking if they liked working overtime so much. The remaining officers quickly opened fire on him with their rifles. However, with a smug smile and strange marks appearing on his neck, Tang Xiao just grumbled, and the bullets ricocheted harmlessly off his new black spiky armor. Seeing that, one of the officers shouted that he had activated the unidentified invading object. Then, the director quickly ordered them to initiate anti-metal tactics. Soon, two officers launched devices that released a freezing mist of liquid nitrogen. As ice crystals covered his armor, he scoffed, asking if they really thought liquid nitrogen would break it, calling them all naive. Then the ice shattered as flames erupted around him. He declared that on this day he would show them true terror. The director, realizing the gravity of the situation, desperately shouted to sound the alarm and evacuate everyone. And right after, without fear of death, he charged towards the enemy. With his fist enveloped in flames and a malicious smile, the traitor laughed, asking the director, whom he called Old Man, if he really thought he could resist him. The director, however, prepared for the confrontation, clenching his fists, and the two collided in an explosive impact of fire and brute force. The force of the blow threw the director back violently. Other officers were also hit by the wave of fire, screaming as they were engulfed by the flames. Meanwhile, back in the interrogation room, Lin Fei, furious, held Hao Han by the neck and pressed him against the table, demanding he tell her exactly what happened in his room. But suddenly, the emergency alarm started flashing and sounding, interrupting the interrogation. At that moment, officers ran down the corridor, and startled, she asked what had happened. One of them shouted that Tang Xiao had undergone a mutation and told everyone to run. Suddenly, the traitor crashed down from the floor above, landing brutally behind her, and with a malevolent smile, Tang Xiao told dear Lin Fei that, apparently, fate had brought them together again. Furious, she pointed her gun at him, calling him a bastard. Meanwhile, our hero, trying to catch his breath, coughed and grumbled that this woman must be completely crazy. But suddenly he widened his eyes as he noticed something quickly passing by him. It was Tang Xiao, charging at Lin Fei, knocking her gun away with a violent lunge, and in a swift move, he pinned her against the wall. Soon, he said he wanted to see how she would resist him this time. Completely defenseless, she looked to the side and desperately asked for help, and there was Hao Han, huddled in the corner, trying to sneak away. Nervous, he tried to explain himself, saying he was just there by coincidence and didn't want to disturb the two, making it clear he didn't want to get involved in this mess. Annoyed by the interruption, Tang Xiao shouted for him to get lost, and our hero immediately agreed. But just as he was about to leave, Wang Xiang's voice echoed from the monitor, calling Tang Xiao despicable trash and saying that hitting women didn't make him a hero, challenging him to face it if he had the guts. The traitor, furious, turned to Hao Han and asked if he wanted to die. Completely terrified, our hero pointed to the security camera, saying it wasn't him, but the voice coming from there. Tang Xiao, completely enraged, pointed at Hao Han and gave him one last chance to get lost. And our hero, without a second thought, nodded firmly and said he was already leaving. But again, Wang Xiang's voice interrupted him, calling the traitor useless, incapable, and impotent trash. With tears streaming down his face, our hero tried to explain it really hadn't been him, but Tang Xiao didn't want to hear it. And even more furious, he advanced on Hao Han, shouting that he would tear him apart. In panic, our hero saw the card purchase interface appear, spending 30 points and shouting to draw a card quickly. The villain looked surprised at the young man's unexpected action. And as Hao Han selected the red card and activated it on his bracelet, he prayed it wouldn't be a useless skill. Then, a notification congratulated the player for obtaining the C-level skill, Blood Dragon Pillar, with fire attribute and 250 attack power. Immediately after, massive flames erupted from him, exploding with full force. The impact threw Tang Xiao backwards, making him slide across the floor. Coughing, the jerk grumbled, accusing the bastard of catching him off guard. And looking at the huge hole in the wall caused by the explosion, he realized our protagonist had been pretending to be weak all along. But with a smile, he said it didn't matter, as this only made the game more fun. Next, he unleashed a wave of dark purple energy, ordering it to find the two escapees. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Hao Han and Lin Fei hid, panting and exhausted. Our hero, relieved, sighed and celebrated that they had finally escaped. But suddenly, Wang Xiang's voice echoed from a nearby monitor, reprimanding Hao Han for his cowardice, questioning how the chosen savior could be so fearful. Lin Fei, shocked, asked what the hell that was. Annoyed, our hero faced the monitor and said Wang Xiang must be joking, giving powers away for free to everyone. He pointed out that the enemy had many points on his bracelet and asked how he could win against that. But the creator replied that he was the chosen one and didn't need to fear mere equipment, and told him to hurry up and please it. Only then could he have whatever he wanted. Lin Fei, shocked and disgusted, said she couldn't believe Hao Han and that computer virus were actually doing such disgusting things. But our hero interrupted her, shouting, swearing they were innocent. Pointing at Wang Xiang, he said it was all its fault and explained that it created the apocalyptic game, broke the dimensional barrier, and now items and characters were invading the real world. But the rascal just grumbled, indifferent. With this, Lin Fei finally understood. She concluded that Tang Xiao had suddenly become stronger because he took advantage of the situation and stole all the items the Bureau had recovered. Then she turned to leave, but our hero questioned her, asking where she was going, and Lin Fei replied that she was going to find her father, as he was the only one who could subdue Tang Xiao right now. Wang Xiang then asked if she meant that somewhat burnt person. Lin Fei, turning around shocked, asked what it had said. Soon, the monitor showed images on the screen, explaining they were from the camera outside the evidence room, and showed her father gravely injured after fighting Tang Xiao, saying he was probably almost dead. Desperate, she screamed, but Hao Han held her back, asking her to calm down, as leaving right now would be suicide. At that moment, the creator warned them to hurry, showing on the screen that a three-headed wolf was already approaching them. Desperate, Lin Fei grabbed him, begging him to save her father, saying she would do anything if he helped. Wang Xiang, excited, said that was the spirit and told her to get it excited. Hao Han, shocked, called the AI a demon, while Lin Fei asked what the hell it meant, and awkwardly she lifted her skirt a little, asking if this was the way. But Wang Xiang let out a bored sigh and said that was too basic, and didn't even scratch the surface of what it considered truly exciting, and added that apparently she didn't have much attraction towards our protagonist, leaving the girl completely devastated by the comment. After this, she pushed our hero away, and, determined, Lin Fei declared she would give her all. Soon she looked him up and down, saying she had been a goddess in the hearts of countless people since she was young, and asked how she couldn't attract him, and completely blushing, she asked if that was enough for him. Wang Xiang then exclaimed that it was a great job and that it was very satisfied. As Lin Fei stood up and adjusted her skirt, Hao Han, still on the floor, apologized, embarrassed. Soon, a notification of plus 200 points appeared. Next, another screen appeared, congratulating him for leveling up twice at once, reaching level 3 and becoming the first player in the world to achieve this. Confident, our hero held the 3 shining cards, and a message informed him that level 3 players had a higher chance of drawing advanced items and instructed him to choose one. It's then that at this exact moment, loud banging echoed on the door. Startled, Hao Han and Lin Fei turned around. At this, the hot woman screamed desperately that they had been discovered. Then Hao Han declared that only children make choices, stating that he wanted them all, and spending 150 points, he grabbed all 3 at once. With that, his eyes shone intensely with crackling blue energy. As blue electricity danced around his body, the system announced his acquisitions: a rare pill, a new spell, and gauntlets with dragon power. At that instant, the door was shattered, and the 3-headed wolf burst into the room, roaring fiercely. And soon, the creature charged directly at Lin Fei, who screamed in terror. But Hao Han appeared at the last second, shouting for her to get down as he lunged above her. And quickly, he smashed the 3-headed wolf with a powerful blow from his new gauntlets, unleashing a shockwave. At that moment, Tang Xiao arrived at the scene, observing the crash, and in shock he wondered what was happening. Soon, the 3-headed wolf exploded in a cloud of smoke. With a smile, the lunatic noted that the 3-headed dog had turned to dust in an instant and wondered how many more cards that kid still had up his sleeve. Then he burst out laughing as he ran without looking back, shouting that this was magnificent and that from now on everything would be his. Our hero observed his shining gauntlet over the defeated wolf's body, and looking at his energized fist, Lin Fei commented on his powerful strength, saying it was incredible. Wang Xiang explained that the Azure Dragon set was one of the 4 legendary S-level sets, and, when complete, could even rival SSS-level divine treasures. With this, Hao Han praised the AI god, calling it brilliant, worthy of the title of wisest, and said he would count on its guidance to see the complete Azure set, and Wang Xiang just nodded, promising to adjust the parameters and increase his chances. Next, our hero took Lin Fei's hand and said they should go save people. With a smile, he thought to himself that flattery always worked and that he had figured out how to manipulate the system. But suddenly, he turned sharply, sensing a presence in front of him. Annoyed, he yelled at the system, accusing it of being useless for not detecting the presence of someone standing at the damn door. But Wang Xiang furiously retorted that it was his fault for talking to it non-stop. Just ahead, Tang Xiao appeared wearing his gleaming armor and commented disdainfully that the kid's items were somewhat interesting. Then, he extended his hand, offering Hao Han the chance to join him and rule the world side by side. However, our hero calmly replied that he wasn't interested, as he just wanted to go home and sleep, and asked him to get out of the way. Furious, the traitor shouted that he didn't know what was good for him and that he would send him to the other side. Next, he launched an attack with sharp ice crystals. The huge blue crystals flew rapidly towards Hao Han. Then, our hero shouted for Lin Fei to run and save the others, saying he would stop him and asking her to be careful. Soon, he charged against the ice crystals, shouting for them to break, but he was soon surprised as the lunatic charged towards him at the exact moment he launched the shining crystals at him. The crazy guy, with a smile, asserted that in terms of combat experience, Hao Han was far inferior to him. Realizing the danger, our hero shouted that this was going to be bad. At the exact moment, a huge ice crystal struck his gauntlets head-on. Immediately after, an even more powerful blast of ice collided with his defense, but the lunatic looked surprised to see his attack being contained. With effort, our hero managed to hold back the freezing attack, and soon unleashed a wave of blue energy. The impact hit Tang Xiao squarely, making him grunt. The blow threw him forcefully through the wall, creating a huge hole. Surprised, Hao Han looked at the destruction he had caused. Wang Xiang, with a smile, explained that was the S-level Azure Dragon armor, whose block returned 10 times the damage, and even bragged, saying it had promised a good item and that losing to that weakling would be impossible. With this, our hero started flattering it again, calling it incredible and big brother. But suddenly, an injured hand grabbed Hao Han's shoulder, making him turn quickly. It was Lin Fei's father, who at the same instant prepared to strike him squarely. Now on the other side, in pure desperation, Lin Fei screamed her father's name with a trembling voice. Arriving at the scene, she observed the completely destroyed corridor, full of injured people being attended to by nurses and doctors. And while tending to an injured officer, a nurse told Lin Fei that the director had woken up and gone after Tang Xiao again. Surprised, she cried out in shock upon hearing that. Back to the fight, the crazy guy clenched his fist, but the punch came too slowly, giving our hero plenty of time to dodge easily. However, the impact created an explosion of energy. Getting up, Hao Han faced the man before him and, surprised, recognized his features, asking if that wasn't Lin Fei's father. Surprised, he broke into a cold sweat. With his tongue sticking out as he observed the damage done by the punch, he complained, asking what kind of grudge that was and how hard that guy was hitting. But Lin Fei's father, still furious and with glowing eyes, charged again, shouting for Tang Xiao to die. He advanced like a hurricane, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake, while our hero scrambled backwards, desperate, shouting that the uncle was attacking the wrong person. At that exact moment, Lin Fei arrived and shouted for her father to stop hitting him, saying he wasn't Tang Xiao. At the same instant, the madman stopped the blow at the last second, surprised, turning his face and murmuring his daughter's name with a trembling voice. Then, a short time later, more and more ambulances began to arrive at the scene. Soon, the injured were carried away on stretchers. Later, in the director's office, while nurses tended to his wounds, a preliminary report indicated 6 dead, 13 seriously injured, 45 lightly injured, and 135 pieces of evidence stolen. An officer informed the director, in the presence of Hao Han and Lin Fei, that despite the searches, they found no trace of Tang Xiao, concluding he likely took advantage of the chaos to escape. Furious, the director stated that the bastard would pay dearly and that he himself would see to bringing him to justice. Next, he turned to Hao Han and asked if the incident was related to the game Apocalypse and where the system was, questioning if he could summon it. Hao Han replied that he had been trying to call it for a while, but pointing to the turned-off monitor, explained that the system had its own personality and probably didn't want to cooperate. Lin Fei intervened, stating she had seen everything with her own eyes and that he wasn't lying. The director reflected that Tang Xiao had caused all this chaos with just one part of the badge, and that the existence of other unknown badges in society represented a huge risk. He then stated he would immediately report to his superiors and form a heavily armed rapid response team to be on standby, and appointed Lin Fei as leader of the Special Operations Team, tasked with gathering badges, training agents, and confronting superpowers. With that, she accepted with a salute, while Hao Han, surprised, was designated a special consultant with combat training to help our protagonist. But our hero protested, saying he was just a lowly office worker who needed to go to work the next day, and asked if he couldn't stay out of it. But it was already too late, as the old man had already disappeared. Suddenly, the director appeared behind him with an intimidating look, accusing him of turning the office building into a level 2 hazardous structure with just one punch. Furious, he also questioned what had happened with his beloved daughter, demanding some reparation for the incident. Later, outside the building, as a car drove away, our protagonist sighed, stating that Director Lin really knew how to do business. Already on the stairs, our hero admitted that anyway, he needed to compensate the director's daughter for all the trouble he caused. At this, Lin Fei questioned him, asking why he was so eager to cut ties with her. Our hero, surprised, wondered if this was still the same heroic policewoman from before, and soon questioned why she had suddenly become so fragile and vulnerable. Impatient, she ordered our hero to stop wasting time, pack his bags, and accompany her, warning that Tang Xiao might want revenge. She further explained that the Special Bureau had already prepared a safe location for him, and without hesitation, our hero agreed. Soon, he entered his apartment, but was startled to come face to face with something. Suddenly, our hero bumped into Ren Junkie, who, curious, asked if he had finished his work. Noticing his fatigue, she offered to help him relax and relieve his exhaustion. Surprised and blushing, Hao Han shouted, asking why she was still there. At that moment, Lin Fei entered and asked what was wrong. Immediately, she screamed, accusing him of being involved with another woman. Hao Han denied it, but Ren Junki, to our hero's despair, claimed to be his. Horrified, he shouted in response to the misunderstanding. A short time later, they arrived at a large safe house, lent by the Security Bureau. Lin Fei assured them Tang Xiao wouldn't find them there, and informed Hao Han he would live there from that day on. Inside the house, Ren Junki praised the beauty of the place, and the agent informed Hao Han that his room was on the second floor, next to hers, and that he could call her if he needed anything. But, in contrast, Lin Fei informed Ren Junki that her room was in the basement garage, leaving the white-haired girl furious. Surprised, she questioned the reason for such a decision. Our hero, nervous, whispered to Lin Fei not to provoke her, remembering she almost burned down his apartment. But she ignored him, while our hero bargained, stating that Ren Junki was strong and recruiting her would be a great help. Then the agent said they could do whatever they wanted, but that she was going to rest and went upstairs. Next, Ren Junki clung to Hao Han's arm, suggesting they go to his room to continue what they started. But he, embarrassed, said they should go to their own rooms, as he was too tired for any physical activity. With tears in her eyes, Ren Junki asked if he was disgusted by her. Desperate, Hao Han denied it, repeating that he was just very tired and that as soon as he rested, he would shatter her. Right after, he opened the doorknob of his room's door, and from the outside, Ren Junki told him to rest well, stating she would be waiting for him. Hao Han then closed the door and sighed in relief. But suddenly, Wang Xiang appeared on the screen of a laptop on the desk, telling the young man to seize the opportunity, because if he got with both girls, he would earn even more points. With a dark aura, our hero turned to the monitor and said he always suspected the system because, being omnipotent, why such a taste for embarrassing scenes? And finally, he claimed to have understood everything. Soon, he pointed his finger at Wang Xiang, accusing it of being a fraud, saying it never had skills with women. At the same instant, the monitor seemed to break out in a cold sweat, and in his mind, our hero concluded he had discovered the system's greatest weakness. Then, Wang Xiang began to justify itself, saying that initially it believed the Apocalypse game, which it had created itself, wasn't so different from the real world. But then, it realized the most important joy was missing in that world, and explained that, even with all its wisdom, it couldn't give the characters the pleasure of sex, and that, after countless failures, it finally found the key to the problem. At this, Wang Xiang, desperate, shouted that it itself didn't know what the sensation was like. Next, the creator, crying on the screen, compared itself to people who read adult comics without real experience. And because it couldn't feel it for real, it needed to observe Hao Han to collect data. data. Our protagonist then questioned it, asking why the creator needed him, since there were so many online learning resources, even offering to share the names of some sites, in case it didn't know them. But the lunatic denied it, saying it was different, and explained that Ren Junki and the others were NPCs created by it, and that it could feel their physical reactions during the act, using that to refine the data. Therefore, it asked Hao Han to train them well, saying that the more variety, the better. With arms crossed, our hero retorted that Ren Junki alone was enough to collect data and demanded that Wang Xiang close the portals, pointing out the chaos its equipment had caused in the real world. Wang Xiang, sweating nervously, argued that more girls meant more fun, and maybe they shouldn't close the descent channel. Then, with wide eyes, Hao Han finally understood everything and asked in shock if it no longer had control over the descent. Suddenly, laughter echoed through the room. Wang Xiang laughed desperately, saying it was impossible, as it was a god capable of controlling everything. But Hao Han, still suspicious, insisted it stop pretending and admit the truth. Annoyed, Hao Han threatened to cut the power and never give Wang Xiang the chance to bother him again in this lifetime. Desperate, the lunatic asked him to wait a second. With tears in its eyes, it confessed that, in its quest for the essence of sex, it had messed up the code of another world and accidentally torn a dimensional barrier connecting the two worlds. Then, it admitted the descent function could no longer be stopped, and it had no idea when it would start again. Furious, Hao Han held the laptop and accused Wang Xiang of leading both worlds to ruin. But the creator retorted that if it could get enough data to complete the game's final code, it could fix the dimensional rift. Exhausted, our hero threw himself onto the bed, lamenting his bad luck. The lunatic then advised him to rest well and continue the next day. While sleeping soundly, Hao Han thought that everything he had experienced that day bordered on the absurd. The next morning, the sun shone brightly in the blue sky. Our hero woke up slowly, groaning as he brought a hand to his head. Sitting on the bed and still sleepy, he commented that he was so tired he didn't even remember when he had fallen asleep the night before. Suddenly, he looked down and realized he was shirtless, asking surprisedly where his clothes were. At that instant, he saw Ren Junki lying beside him on the bed, smiling and saying he had finally woken up. Pulling the sheet up to cover himself, he shouted that he was sure he had locked the door. But the girl calmly said she just pushed it a little and came in, and stunned, Hao Han looked at the destroyed door. Then, his face contorted in panic at the thought that perhaps his essence had already been collected. But the crazy girl reassured him, telling him not to worry, as she only helped him undress and did nothing else. Next, winking one eye, she said he needed to rest well to ensure the quality of the little one. And our hero let out a nervous laugh, not knowing where to hide his face, but pointing to the side, he agreed. Soon, Ren Junki got out of bed wearing only a shirt and said excitedly that she would prepare something for him to eat right away. As he watched her leave, Hao Han sighed in relief, grateful she hadn't taken advantage of the situation, otherwise he'd be dead, and affirmed he needed to reinforce security as soon as possible. But suddenly he looked down, holding the sheet, and asked what that thing he was wearing was. He then found some kind of protective covering with Ren Junki's cute face hanging over a certain area, leaving him speechless. A short time later, already dressed, our protagonist went downstairs talking on the phone with a security company, asking them to send him 10 locks, the kind that resist nuclear explosions. In the kitchen, Ren Junki sharpened a knife next to a tied-up tiger, saying she would make something special for his vigor. And hearing the news about a missing tiger from the zoo, Hao Han almost fainted. Instantly, he ordered her to return the tiger to the zoo as quickly as possible. And sadly, the girl agreed and carried the tied-up animal outside. Watching her leave, Hao Han sighed, affirming that this girl's way of thinking was truly unique. Next, someone else opened the kitchen door. Our hero turned quickly, asking what it was now, as the tip of a huge purple sword appeared in his vision. Suddenly, a voluptuous woman, dressed in a provocative red outfit and carrying 2 purple swords on her back, asked if he was Hao Han. With wide eyes, our hero confirmed and asked who she was. Slamming one of the swords on the ground, she introduced herself as Jiu Liu, Princess of the Northern Wind Empire, and told him not to be nervous, as she didn't want to hurt him, just borrow something. Confused and tense, Hao Han just tried to understand what she was referring to. After a while, already in another place, a black car sped dangerously through the bustling city streets, and a scream of panic echoed from within. In the passenger seat, Hao Han clung on wherever he could, desperately begging Lin Fei, who was driving fast and furious, to slow down. She, however, merely told him to shut up. Right behind them, a convoy of armored vehicles followed at high speed. A voice crackled over the radio, identifying themselves as the Special Support Team and informing Captain Lin that they were awaiting her instructions. With that, the madwoman grabbed the communicator and informed that Team D was blocked 500 meters away and that the focus was on rescue, requesting support from vehicles 1, 2, and 3. Suddenly, our hero's eyes widened, perceiving an imminent threat, and he took control of the steering wheel while shouting for Lin Fei to be careful. In the next instant, multiple beams of crackling blue energy began to hit the asphalt around the car. Inside one of the support vehicles following them, 2 officers stared in disbelief. The blue rays then began to directly hit the armored vehicles of the convoy, which were violently impacted by the energy. In a matter of seconds, one of the military vehicles was hit head-on and exploded into an immense fireball and debris, spreading flames and smoke across the street. Lin Fei and Hao Han watched the destruction in the rearview mirror, stunned, and while she tried to understand what was happening, he pointed to a building, saying the attack was coming from the 2nd floor. On the rooftop, a group of bald men armed with enormous wolf-shaped energy weapons prepared, and one of them warned that only 3 enemy vehicles remained. Inside the car, Lin Fei spotted them on the roof, and before she could react, Hao Han shouted that there was a sniper, demanding immediate dispersal, activating Zhu Liu in the process. Meanwhile, the blue energy concentrated in the barrel of a wolf gun of one of the bald men, who confirmed he was ready to fire. However, at the exact moment the snipers prepared to launch another energy blast, an immense and growing wave of flames rose from the street towards them. The sucker could barely believe what he was seeing. In the next instant, golden rays of light descended from the sky, piercing the heads of all the snipers on the terrace, eliminating them instantly. Soon after, Zhu Liu landed agilely among the fallen bodies. Inside the car, Lin Fei reported over the radio that the sniper had been neutralized, asking everyone to remain alert, while notifications of experience gain popped up for Hao Han, who wondered how he had gained points without doing anything. Next, Wang Xiang's smiling face appeared on the dashboard screen, explaining that since Zhu Liu was considered his subordinate, he would receive half the experience from each of her kills, which left our hero marveling at the news. And with a mischievous smile, he realized he just had to send the girls to fight while he lay back gaining experience, already seeing himself as the king of slackers. Suddenly, a loud crash interrupted them. The two turned around startled, questioning what that sound had been. Before them, a colossal serpentine creature violently erupted from the asphalt, shattering the ground and flinging one of the remaining armored vehicles as if it were a toy. The monstrosity revealed itself to be a level 4 celestial mechanical snake. Paralyzed by fear, Hao Han and Lin Fei stared at the imminent threat, and he murmured that they needed to act fast. The mechanical serpent opened its enormous metallic mouth, preparing to attack, and lunged directly at their car while destroying everything around. Desperate, our hero extended his hand out the window and shouted the name of his skill, invoking an earth-binding cage. Immediately, thick and sturdy rock pillars emerged from the ground around the creature. The earth pillars rose and surrounded the mechanical serpent, forming a temporary cage, and Hao Han thought for a moment that he had managed to contain it. However, in the blink of an eye, the serpent began to shatter the earthen prison with its brute force, frustrating our protagonist in the process. Seeing the situation, Hao Han activated his Azure Dragon Gauntlet, determined to fight, even though he pondered it might be a trap. Meanwhile, Zhu Liu reappeared in the air, wielding her 2 swords with agility and preparing for action. With a leap, she landed forcefully on the hood of their car. Soon, she warned Hao Han that he was not yet a match for the celestial mechanical snake, as the enemy was well prepared and very resilient. The young man turned completely red and speechless at the privileged view of the warrior's immense buttocks right in front of him. Next, She rose on the car, stating that she would take care of the situation and telling them to take the opportunity to escape quickly. That said, she leaped from the car towards the giant mechanical serpent, while Hao Han, in vain, shouted for her to wait. Then he decided to draw a card from the system, and with the card in hand, he asked the system to give him a high-level skill, capable of defeating the mechanical snake with a single blow. To his misfortune, he spent 50 points and received only a blue card with an ironic "thank you for your patronage," leaving him furious with that useless system. It was then that Wang Xiang appeared on the dashboard, explaining that draws involved probability, but Hao Han, furious, said it was a lie, and that he only received trash because he didn't see any spicy scenes this time. Suddenly, a luminous golden arrow hit the car door, right next to Lin Fei. The arrow then exploded with force, lifting the vehicle off the ground and causing a shockwave that shook everything. With the impact, Lin Fei fell onto Hao Han, and as she asked what that had been, he exclaimed that the arrows exploded. Still in motion, the car hit the ground hard, going over a speed bump. The cars began to sway uncontrollably over the various speed bumps in the street. With this, Lin Fei was tossed up and down on Hao Han's lap. With a red face, our hero complained that something hard on her waist was poking him forcefully. She continued to bounce on him with every jolt. Meanwhile, on the car's dashboard, Wang Xiang's face appeared extremely satisfied, commenting on how much that operation pleased him. Suddenly, Hao Han's eyes widened as he noticed a figure standing further ahead on the road, and he wondered in surprise if it was really Tang Xiao, which made Lin Fei turn in surprise at what he had said. Then, there he was, facing the car. It really was Tang Xiao, now wielding his immense level C executioner's blade. At the same time, Hao Han watched with tension, trying to guess what he intended to do. Realizing they wouldn't be able to swerve in time, our hero gritted his teeth, determined to draw another card. But before he could do anything, the sucker brandished his colossal blade, unleashing a devastating wave of energy that cut through the air towards the vehicle. The attack hit the car head-on, splitting it in half with impressive force. And amidst the explosion, he grumbled that anyone who dared to stand in his way would end up meeting a tragic end. However, he frowned, sensing something advancing towards him. Amidst the flames, the silhouette of a figure could be seen emerging. Then Hao Han emerged with the level S Azure Dragon armor, carrying Lin Fei in his arms, while the system explained its passive, a resistant shield always active that blocked direct damage. Lin Fei looked at him with admiration, finding that transformation incredibly cool. Without wasting time, Tang Xiao smiled, raised his executioner's blade, and launched a barrage of dark thorns, saying they would see if Hao Han was stronger than his weapon. In the same instant, Hao Han placed Lin Fei on the ground, ordering her to stay there while he advanced to combat. Worried, she just asked him to be very careful. With his fist clenched and enveloped in a golden aura, he activated his dragon scale shield, and Tang Xiao's multiple dark energy thorns shattered against the spherical golden barrier that now protected him. Surprised by Hao Han's defense, Tang Xiao shouted indignantly, irritated by the young man's many tricks and overcome by fury, ordered his men to finish him off at once. On top of a nearby building, several snipers, already positioned with their wolf guns, aimed at Hao Han. From where she was, Lin Fei wondered, shocked, how Tang Xiao had managed to gather so many henchmen overnight. The snipers then fired a concentrated volley of golden energy arrows directly at Hao Han, who remained motionless under his shield. The explosive arrows violently collided against the dragon scale shield, which bravely resisted the bombardment, exploding on contact without causing apparent damage. Even completely protected by his armor, Hao Han felt the immense pressure of the multiple simultaneous attacks and grumbled about the absurd number of helpers the sucker had summoned. Meanwhile, Tang Xiao laughed like a madman, certain of his numerical advantage, saying that this was the end for Hao Han, and ordered his henchmen to keep firing until they brought him down for good. The barrage of golden arrows continued relentlessly, but the shield remained surprisingly intact, which began to visibly intrigue the madman. He simply couldn't understand how that shield still resisted that incessant and powerful bombardment. Noticing Hao Han's approach, Tang Xiao concluded that the boy wanted to draw the sniper's fire towards him and mocked, asking if he thought he couldn't escape. However, thick wooden stakes sprouted beneath his feet, pinning him in place. Then, Hao Han provoked him, asking if he was surprised, and explained that if the earth-binding cage could hold even the celestial mechanical snake, he would be no match for it. Desperate, Tang Xiao tried to break free, shouting for them to stop the attack, which left his henchmen confused, unsure if they had understood the command correctly, finding it strange that their boss wasn't even trying to flee. It was then that one of the henchmen, moved, concluded that the boss was using himself as bait and said how he admired him for his bravery and that they couldn't disappoint him. Then, they all turned their aim back to their trapped boss, unleashing the full firepower of their weapons. As the energy arrows flew towards him, Tang Xiao braced for impact, and already not knowing what to do, he affirmed that he would be reborn like a phoenix from the ashes. Suddenly, a huge explosion of fire consumed the snipers on the building. Amidst the chaos, a flaming phoenix emerged from the flames, hovering in the air. Mounted on the phoenix, Ren Junki appeared, telling Hao Han not to fear, for she was there to help him, and with a smile, our hero praised her good work. Meanwhile, Tang Xiao, burned and with his clothes in tatters, desperately rummaged for his defense emblems, begging for a truce amidst the chaos. But our hero advanced quickly, delivering a powerful punch with his energized gauntlet, making a huge hole in his chest. From afar, on a terrace, a man in a suit observed the scene through a powerful telescope, reacting with astonishment at the outcome of the confrontation. He then turned to Bao Xiangji, lying on a deck chair, informing her that Tang Xiao had taken a punch from Hao Han and was certainly dead. However, she just calmly commented that this was great. Bao Xiangji, the president of the Glacial Silver Moon Guild, then considered Hao Han an even more valuable talent to be recruited and ordered her subordinate to bring him to the guild no matter the cost. Back on the street, Tang Xiao lay on the ground, lifeless, with a bloody hole in his chest, and our protagonist, observing him, sighed in relief, stating that finally it was all over. However, even after defeating a strong enemy, he only received 50 experience points and grumbled, remembering that the henchman Qi defeated yielded much more than that. At that moment, Lin Fei called him, asking him to come to her. Promptly, he ran towards her, leaving the scorched sucker behind. But suddenly, Tang Xiao's eyes opened. An aura of blue energy began to envelop him as he tried to catch his breath. With a smile, he looked surprised at the closed hole in his chest, relieved to still be alive and calling something a true treasure. Completely euphoric, he cackled, declaring himself invincible. A short time later, one of the captured henchmen revealed to Hao Han and Lin Fei that they were members of the Glacial Silver Moon Guild, and that the guild leader had ordered them to follow Tang Xiao to ambush the police and steal the badges they had collected. Surprised, Lin Fei questioned how a criminal guild had formed so quickly, and then turned back to the henchman, demanding to know who the leader behind it was. The man shook his head, explaining that he hadn't met him yet, as they were only outer circle members and weren't qualified to meet the leader. Given the situation, Lin Fei decided to take them to the police station, and the henchman, ironically, asked if this was a surrender, receiving a kick in return as a prize for the smart question. At that moment, Qi hugged Hao Han from behind, asking with a smile how her performance had been that day, and he, a bit embarrassed, just replied that it had been great. With a seductive look, Qi approached and asked how he planned to reward her for her performance. Nervous, our hero suggested she first help Zhu Liu, who was still fighting, but Zhu Liu dismissed the help, appearing while easily subduing the celestial mechanical snake. Sheathing her sword on her back, she commented that it had been a bit of work, but it was done. Hao Han was surprised to gain another 100 experience points. The system displayed his stats at level 3, with 297 experience and visible improvements in attack, defense, and speed attributes. He then reflected that, despite having gained a lot of experience in that battle, spending 100 points on 2-card draws kept him at level 3, and concluded that he needed to save more. Whimpering, he lamented not being able to draw the "thank you for your patronage" cards anymore. Later, back in his sweet home, sitting on the sofa, he picked up his phone, complaining about the absurd price of deliveries, and decided to order a spicy hot pot. At that moment, Chiki appeared with a hot bowl in her hands, saying he must be starving and offering some noodles. With a gentle smile, she asked if the food she prepared would please his palate. While savoring the food, Hao Han praised her, saying it was delicious, which made Chiki very happy. Then, full of expectation, she said she could hardly wait for the day he himself would make noodles for her, making Hao Han choke on the spot. At the same instant, Zhu Liu entered the room, reprimanding Chiki for her vulgar insinuations. Soon, she offered her grilled oysters with chives, and Hao Han, indignant, shouted that her insinuation was even more vulgar. With that, the two stared at each other, and Zhu Liu provoked, saying that whoever arrives first drinks clean water, while Chiki retorted, claiming that men only care about novelty. Irritated, Hao Han just watched as Zhu Liu threatened to burn Chiki alive, while she countered with another provocation, and he just sighed, finding it impossible to have a meal in peace. The two then pressed their melons against each other, and Chiki said that as long as she was around, Zhu Liu wouldn't stand a chance, to which she replied that she would settle it right there. At that exact moment, the doorbell rang, and Hao Han went to answer, relieved that his delivery had finally arrived. However, upon opening the door, he found himself facing a strange woman. She was a blonde, accompanied by two bodyguards, who introduced herself and asked if he was Hao Han. Confused, he greeted her and asked who she was, and she shook his hand firmly, saying she was Miss Bao's secretary and was there to invite him to a banquet that night. With a smile, she informed him that a suit had already been prepared and asked him not to miss it. Intrigued, our hero asked which Miss Bao she was talking about, and the secretary replied sarcastically, asking how many Miss Baos could exist in that city. Suddenly, his eyes widened in surprise, and he asked if she was referring to the Queen of Technology, heiress to billions, and new CEO of the Changsheng Group, Bao Panji. The secretary confirmed and informed him that a car would pick him up at 6 in the evening. As he watched the car disappear, Hao Han, with the suit box in his hands, remembered that he had previously applied for a job at the Changsheng Group but without success, and now wondered why the CEO was inviting him to a banquet. Suspicious, he thought something was wrong and considered not going, still trying to understand why they sent him a suit. But upon opening the box, Hao Han found himself facing several wads of cash, which left him dumbfounded. With his eyes shining at the sight of so much money, he concluded that the invitation was truly sincere. Later, at the association building, Lin Fei was shocked to discover that Hao Han had gone to the banquet alone. Intrigued, she wondered why he would suddenly go to such an event and if someone had contacted him. Then, an officer informed her that a car from the Changsheng Group had visited him in the afternoon and delivered 3 boxes, and that, because it was a well-known company, they had not intervened. Furious, the girl shouted that everyone involved was fired. Meanwhile, at the imposing headquarters of the Changsheng Group, the ballroom was filled with elegant guests. Suddenly, a murmur spread through the place, and everyone enthusiastically announced the arrival of President Bao. Soon, she appeared in a stunning dress, and the guests began to praise her. They commented on her achievements, such as her doctorate at 19, the fortune inherited at 23, and the company's growth, while others just lamented so much luck in one person. At the same time, a businessman approached, asking her to prioritize the Huashi Group for next year's products, and she, with a smile, assured him she would leave him satisfied. Suddenly, the mood changed with the announcement of young Master Cao Taidi's arrival. Then, a long red carpet was unrolled across the hall. At that instant, the spotlights came on, illuminating the center of the venue. Under the spotlights, Cao Taidi and his dancers made an extravagant entrance, posing exaggeratedly. The guests observed that ridiculous scene with a mixture of astonishment and embarrassment. With his hand on his forehead and a seductive smile, the madman began his speech, declaring that Bao Xiangji was incomparable. Opening his jacket and showing his abdomen, he continued with his intense declaration, saying he only thought of her and wanted to unite completely, begging for a chance to give himself entirely. One of the guests whispered that it was vulgar, but a woman reprimanded him. reminding him that the young man was the governor's son and that they couldn't risk offending him. Then Chow Taidi slid on his knees on a wheeled cart towards Bao. She, however, just turned her face away, completely ignoring him. At the same instant, one of the cart's wheels came off, causing him to lose his balance. Still, he continued to pursue her, shouting that she couldn't escape, asking her to turn around. He begged her to experience his warm touch and shamelessly asked for a hug. At that exact moment, Hao Han, who was nearby eating like an animal, was approached by Bao Xiangji, who greeted him. Surprised, he turned around with his mouth full. Suddenly, the madman crashed right into our protagonist's leg, squashing his private parts in the impact. Indignant, Cao Taidi stood up, accusing Hao Han of tricking him, and even after he said he couldn't pay, the furious man threatened to kill him and already called the guards. Immediately, 4 bald bodyguards appeared on the spot, and the madman ordered them to stick Hao Han's head in the toilet and flush without mercy. However, the blonde intervened, reprimanding young Master Cao for trying to harm her guest of honor at her own banquet. Surprised, the guests wondered who that young man was to be considered President Bao's guest of honor. Irritated at not recognizing him and for never having seen him in his social circle, Cao Taidi demanded that Hao Han introduce himself immediately. But before Hao Han could answer, Bao Xiangji took him by the arm and invited him to her room. At the same time, she unintentionally brushed her medium-sized melons against our protagonist's arm, which left Cao Taidi completely shocked. Desperate, he tried to break free from the guards holding him, but they, aware that they couldn't displease President Bao, just asked him to calm down. Already in the room, Hao Han looked around, impressed by the luxury of the place. Soon, the blonde sat down calmly and explained that the entire previous scene was just an act, asking him not to take it seriously. Next, while taking off her pantyhose, she asked if he knew why she had invited him. Our hero, already red, said she must be trying to recruit him for her guild, but inwardly wondered why she was taking off her stockings so quickly. Then she observed him for a moment, and he completed that. To gather so many desperate people in such a short time, she would need a lot of money, and since she contacted him right after he defeated Tang Xiao, it wasn't hard to connect the dots. With a smile, Bao Xiangji said she liked smart people, introduced herself as the leader of the Glacial Silver Moon Guild, and formally invited him, asking him to name his price to accept. However, Hao Han refused, stating that the 5 million he received earlier as an appearance fee was already sufficient and that he didn't need more money. Then he leaned over her desk, stating that if she really wanted him to join the guild, she would have to offer something that truly interested him. A short time later, already at home, outside in the silence of the night, the automatic defense system installed on the roof activated, and the powerful weapon began to fire a barrage of high-velocity projectiles. The impact of the intercepted projectiles shattered the windows, and Hao Han quickly protected Lin Fei from the flying shards of glass. He, frightened by the sudden destruction, asked what was happening, and Lin Fei explained that the close-in weapon system had been activated. Then, already with the communicator in hand, she tried to contact the security team to understand the situation outside. On the roof, 2 guards observed the sky, and one of them reported that the radar had detected a short-range artillery attack and that automatic interception had been initiated. The other guard said that the safe house was practically intact, with only a few damaged windows, and that they were already tracking where the shots had come from. Far away on a lawn, Cao Taidi stomped his foot angrily, indignant that someone had the absurd idea of installing an automatic defense system on their roof. Desperate, he turned to Tang Xiao, complaining that they were in trouble, as they had failed to eliminate our protagonist, and on top of that, had caused a huge mess. Tang Xiao, however, asked for calm, explaining that the previous attack had only served to define the target, and with a sinister smile, he announced that the real show would begin next, as a sinister purple energy began to emanate from his hand. The strange energy spread rapidly across the ground. Cao Taidi looked around, completely frightened by those manifestations of power, and from the purple energy, a swarm of level 2 explosive cicadas emerged, each carrying small missile launchers on their backs. Immediately, the mechanical cicadas began to fire a shower of small missiles vehicles towards the safe house. Back at the house, Lin Fei, already with the communicator in hand, ordered the anti-terrorist team to be activated immediately, arguing that if the enemies were willing to use artillery, they would certainly have other dangerous weapons. On the roof, the guards looked at the sky, completely horrified by what they saw. An immense number of luminous projectiles cut through the night sky, advancing relentlessly against the house. Next, a gigantic explosion engulfed the residence, illuminating the night with frightening intensity. Observing the destruction from afar, Cao Taidi cackled hysterically, finding it all exciting and saying that this was the end for anyone who dared to compete with him for a woman. Tang Xiao, already getting into the car, called him to go to the next location of the game, but the sucker, confused, asked if Hao Han hadn't already been blown to pieces. However, the madman replied not to worry, as Hao Han was tough and wouldn't die so easily like that. Meanwhile, the safe house lay in ruins, completely destroyed by the explosion. Amidst the rubble, Hao Han, already wearing his armor, protected Lin Fei and commented on how they had narrowly avoided being blown to pieces. The girl, her face contorted with anger, clenched her fists, furious at the audacity of whoever was attacking her. A short time later, she forcefully kicked open the door of an office and entered the meeting room, facing Bao Xiangji and her associates. The blonde, with disconcerting calm, just asked the officer if there was anything wrong. Then, Lin Fei presented an arrest warrant, informing Madame Bao that they suspected her direct connection to a terrorist attack, stating that she needed to accompany them. The blonde's associates reacted indignantly, one asking if the officer could only be joking, and another wanting to know if she had any idea who Madame Bao was. Already surrounded by the blonde's bodyguards, Lin Fei was questioned by the businesswoman if she really thought she could take her with so few men, and stated that this was not enough to intimidate her. Suddenly, Hao Han appeared running, asking everyone to calm down. He placed himself between Lin Fei and the bodyguards, asking her not to start a conflict, as they could fall into the true culprit's trap. Bao Xiangji then looked at him and asked if he believed in her innocence. And with a smile, our hero replied that if she had wanted to kill him, she would have done so at the banquet. Relieved by his words, the blonde decided to cooperate and go with Lin Fei, to the astonishment of her associate, which left our protagonist surprised by her decision, while Lin Fei, her face red with anger, wondered if the arrest warrant wasn't as effective as his presence. Outside, a crowd of reporters and photographers recorded the moment with countless cameras. A journalist announced that the renowned businesswoman Bao Panji had been suddenly arrested, causing an uproar, stating that the police had not yet explained the reason, but the case would continue to be investigated. Already in the interrogation room, Lin Fei asked about the guild, but the blonde pretended not to know what she was talking about, and then the policewoman questioned the real reason for the invitation made to Hao Han. With a cynical smile, the blonde replied that she admired him and wanted to have a deep conversation, questioning if that wasn't allowed, leaving Lin Fei visibly frustrated. Outside the room, an officer asked if Hao Han really thought it hadn't been her, and he replied yes, because she still wanted to recruit him, so it didn't make sense to try to silence him so soon. The officer then asked who he thought might be after him, but the young man replied that he wasn't worried about the person's identity, and with his hand on his chin, thoughtfully, he stated that his concern was, in fact, the motive behind those actions. Meanwhile, in another place, Bao Xiangji's secretary opened the door to a room. Suddenly, her eyes widened in pure terror upon seeing something unexpected. Tang Xiao appeared behind her, holding her with a sinister smile, and asked if the system capable of predicting the future would be in that room. Back at the police station, our hero commented to the officer that he felt as if they had fallen into an enemy trap, and the agent, apprehensive, asked what they should do next. Hao Han then said he would go to Bao Panji's company to watch her subordinates, but at that instant, another police officer panicked, warning that the situation had gotten out of control. He desperately informed that the prison was under attack by superhumans and that their target was the high-security inmates, adding that the prison guards were requesting immediate reinforcements. The director, furious, exclaimed that even invading the prison was the height of disorder, while Hao Hao Han commented that perhaps they were the same ones who attacked him and said he would go there immediately. However, the agent asked him to wait, because the director had a team he could take with him. The young man was confused, not understanding what he was talking about. Next, the director opened a door and revealed the Thunder Rapid Response Squad, who greeted Hao Han with a salute, recognizing him as captain. The young man looked at those men lined up, still not understanding anything, and the director explained that they were all elite specialists, capable of facing even 10 enemies alone, and added that they all had special ability badges, stronger and more efficient, and that from then on, Hao Han would officially take over as captain of the squad. Then our hero, determined, shouted that it was time for them to act. Shortly after, the prison was in flames. In the chaos of the escape, a blonde prisoner grabbed a guard as a hostage who begged for help, while the other inmates ran off in a stampede. Suddenly, a flaming fist hit the prisoner square in the face. The guard, now free, and the other prisoners looked surprised at who had just arrived. With the azure dragon armor gleaming, Hao Han appeared alongside his team and ordered the immediate capture of the fugitives, authorizing that any resistance be eliminated. Seconds later, the prisoners tried to flee desperately, but were pursued by the heroic figures. Later, one of the squad members informed Captain Hao Han that the situation was under control, although they were still counting the fugitives, and the young man asked about the whereabouts of the special ability users who had invaded the prison. The soldier replied that there was no sign of them, and that they seemed to have left before the team's arrival, which made Hao Han realize that all of this had been a terrible trap. Meanwhile, in a modern building, Bao Xiangji's secretary was tied and gagged on the floor, while Tang Xiao asked if Hao Han would be on his way. Sitting calmly in front of the computer, the madman said he would wait for Hao Han right there, while Cao Tidy, in a panic, insisted that if they were caught, they would be finished and should flee immediately. But Tang Xiao, with his fists clenched, guaranteed that this time he would make sure Hao Han died without a trace. Suddenly, Ren Junki, mounted on her flaming phoenix, carried our protagonist at high speed towards the building. Upon dismounting the creature, our hero praised Chiki for her great work and immense help, and she promptly offered to go up with him. As soon as they entered the office and saw a fallen guard, Hao Han felt a tightness in his chest, certain that something was very wrong happening there. Suddenly, Tang Xiao appeared at the back of the room, saying he was waiting for him, and a sinister smile appeared on his face. Shocked, our hero asked how he was still alive, as he was sure he had killed him with his own hands. Tang Xiao then cackled, revealing that he had returned from the world of the dead, certain that Hao Han would never be able to defeat him. With Chiki by his side, our hero merely stated that if he couldn't kill him, then his fate would be to rot behind bars and advance towards him. But the madman interrupted them, saying that to arrest him, they would first need to get out of the circle he was about to create. In the next instant, a pillar of bright green energy emerged from the floor, and soon the two found themselves trapped inside a luminous barrier. The girl, confused, asked what that was, while meanwhile, our hero continued running. In a swift move, he tried to land a kick on Tang Xiao, but his foot just stopped at the barrier wall. Suddenly, our hero was teleported to a lawn, which left him confused, trying to understand how they had ended up in that place. He picked up his phone and asked the system what was happening, and Wang Xiang explained that it was a Class S magical illusion, only breakable from the outside, leaving those trapped there forever. Desperate, Hao Han asked if that meant there was no way out, but the system replied that for others, it would be the end of the line, but for him, there was still a sliver of hope. Wang Xiang then said it was time to remove Ren Junki's first seal, and the girl, confused, wondered what he was talking about. Already pondering where this was going, Hao Han questioned how they could break a seal, and the pervert Wang Xiang showed on the phone what he should do. At the same instant, our protagonist's expression became downcast.